Hey, my fellow Stormworkers, figured I'd make another tutorial here. I wanted to go over like the basics of building like land vehicles or cars and trucks specifically, um, and just kind of cover the basics on it. So let's get straight into it. So why do we need land vehicles? Transportation of cargo on land and as well as like completing missions on land. I mean, that's how we use them in real life. That's how they often get used here in Stormworks, or just for getting around. Um, and they seem to be most effective if you have like the DLC here on like the lower section of the map here with the industrial DLC, um, or up here in the just regular main map region. It's kind of effective out here, like on the main Arctic area, but not super. So um, kind of want to just mainly be using these like vehicles, if you will, like in your main industrial areas is where I see them be most effective. Um, Outside of that, you'd have to like start looking into multi-vehicles, which is something that I will make a video on in the future. But for right now, I want to focus on the basics of getting a vehicle moving. Um, so for this tutorial, I guess I should kind of just start laying out a frame here. Um, Key points here would be like making sure you have like adequate suspension for what you're building. Um, you can go wrong with suspension in many different ways. Um, you can either have it be too soft, you can have it be too stiff. It can be glitchy and buggy if you're doing custom suspension stuff. Whole plethora of different things. But what I'm going to prioritize here is kind of showcasing what you can do like custom suspension wise, because there is some level of customizability. Let's see here. Using just like a simple pipe assembly here, I'm going to go through and make a rear end assembly, something like what you'd see on a truck. This is typically in real life referred to a straight axle suspension or solid axle suspension, depending on where you're from. And then this allows us to put the wheels a little bit closer together to maybe, go for like the dually look that I am going to try to prioritize with this vehicle build. Right now, this is it. We've built a frame. It rolls. It does what it needs to do as far as being a cart. Not really a car, but it will move. So to get this moving, you need to get power from some power source to the wheels. So all I've done now is just link the wheels together. So now I can get power across the drivetrain, if you will. But I don't really have any way of powering it here, which means you need to start to decide your power plant that you're going to use. And I'm going to use power plant very sparingly here, just to describe any subsystem that powers or provides rotational energy to this vehicle. Which here, I think I'm going to go for some sort of hybrid electric system. I mean, heck, we see hybrids have been taken off in the real world, so maybe I might do something there. Maybe not. No, let's just keep it simple. So to start off with, you can either use like the in-game engines, which is what I'm just going to use here. Again, just keeping it as simple as possible. There's a whole plethora of reasons why you would use a better engine source than this, like with the modular engines, but that's a bit above what I want to do here right now. I'm also going to have this be mid-engine for some reason, because that's going to make the layout of everything here just a little bit easier. For basic engine stuff, or simple engines in the game as I like to call them, you need to cool the engine. Here you can use a whole plethora of different things to cool it. I'm actually just going to use a simple fluid heat exchanger here. This isn't going to be able to get us a whole lot of performance out of this engine, but it'll be fine for our purposes. And this isn't going to look like a conventional real-life vehicle layout by any means. This is just a very crude interpretation of what you need to do to get this thing moving. Why not? Let's throw a scoop on there, make it look a little fancy, if you will. And then you need fuel. Fuel source is important. Obviously, you can't go anywhere without it. So, um, just gonna have it wrap out and around here, and just put a simple tank on here. This isn't gonna be a high range vehicle by any means, but it'll at least move you around. And we're actually going to go ahead and make a mistake here just to, showcase what happens like when you make this mistake, and kind of like put out the importance of why gearing is so important on vehicles. Gearing being transmission ideas. You need different gear ratios to get you up to speed so your engine can provide more torque when you need more torque, and then just only deliver horsepower at your higher speeds. Again, kind of an overly crude simplification of it, but for all intents and purposes, this is what would happen if you had no gearbox, no clutch, no anything on this vehicle. So let's get some sort of lever for throttle control here. And then I think I can just control everything else. Because of how I've built this, I'm going to need an inverter here. Numerical inverter. What this does is it's going to invert the numerical signal from my steering input, and it's going to invert it for this other wheel over here, just because I've configured this physically kind of incorrectly, if you will, but it fixes the steering, and you'll see what I mean here in a minute. Let's wire this up. I put the lever going to the engine throttle here, and then the seat button number 1 will initiate the starter. So to move forwards, I'm only going to be able to do this, and then for brakes, I'm actually going to use another numerical inverter for the brakes. Because of how the logic works in the game, it allows me to just invert my output signal, and I can send that to the variable brake on the wheels. This will allow me to stop, ideally. And then we need a battery, because to start the darn thing, we're going to need electricity to power the starter. The starter on the simple engines is on board, thankfully, so it's going to save us some extra logic stuff that we'll have to do there, but simplifies things a little bit for myself. And you can see the suspension is not quite balanced here, because this isn't flexing at all, where the front suspension is almost fully compressed. So, not quite done yet. So that's currently me turning on the starter. And now it's running. But now the engine's running at a super low RPS. And my steering's like not set up correctly, I guess. But you can see why I needed the inverter, because that signal is inverted and the wheels are steering together. I'll showcase that in the builder here in a second. But like, yes, it will drive, but as soon as you put this under any load, it's going to stall out. Which is where we're going to get into the importance of a gearbox. So we'll get to the gearbox here in just a second. I'm going to invert my steering because I inverted it the wrong way. Goes to A and D. Alright, cool. So now that works. The brakes worked. But now, again, we're running into that same issue of the engine, yes, can drive this thing, but it's not great. And the starter is under a lot of load. So I'm going to break out a clutch here. And thankfully, the gearboxes in Stormworks here function more like, in the racing industry, we call them a Linko transmission, where you just like pull a lever and it engages the gear set without needing an additional clutch. Because it is its own clutch. It's not going to get into the semantics of it, but it is its own clutch assembly inside each gearbox section, which is very similar to how Stormworks functions. So a few things you're going to need out of a gearbox. First, you need to know which way it's facing. This is going to be a gear reduction if it's facing this way. This is going to be a gear increase, I guess. So this facing it this way will get you more speed. Facing it this way will get you more torque. And the first segment's not even going to do anything for us because that's just going to be the reverse gear. So let's do this. How we want to do this? And then one overdrive gear, why not? So, and you can design the vehicle to better fit these components if you want to. It's probably what I should have done here. Because now I'm having to modify the frame a little bit, and it's not going to look as great as it once was, but it's going to work. That's the important section. I am wasting pipe too, which is not ideal. Just a straight pipe now. And pipes can carry many things. One of the things you can actually do is run multiple things down the same pipe. Like you can run the power and your fuel down the same pipe, and that will work. So you can save some pipe in some areas, but that's not important. Okay. So now I'm going to link my clutch up to the W and S control here. So if I press W, the clutch will engage, giving me power to my wheels, meaning I will go forward, giving you more predictable behavior. And then as far as the gearing goes, I'm just going to wire this up in a series that kind of makes sense to me. So 2 through 4. The first one's going to be reverse. So if we switch this first gearbox on, it's going to give us our reverse gear. And then if this second gear pack here is off, we should get a gear reduction, if you will, to give me some more torque. So I'm going to do 3 to 1 whenever it's off, and we'll just do 1 to 1 in direct drive because of how we're going to set this next gearbox up as well. So the next gearbox is going to be a copy of it, and then this last one here, because it's going to be our overdrive gear, and again, now if you look at how it's facing, it's going to give us some more speed whenever it initiates. That means we need to come in here, set this to like 2 to 1 or something. And 2 to 1 is probably going to be aggressive. That actually might stall out the engine here, but this will give us a rough idea on how it's going to perform. So this one will give us reverse. This one's going to give us a little bit more speed, a little bit more speed, and a lot of speed. Hold on, I actually accidentally flipped these two around. My bad. I promise sometimes I work here. I forgot that I have the power looping from the engine here down and around and up. So be cognitive of where your gearing is going. Okay, I did do the logic in the correct fashion for this. So let's go over it one more time here. No, 3 to 1 is definitely going to stall it out. So this one will give us reverse if we need it. Then this is going to give us a little bit more speed, and then the final drive, which shifting into that's going to give us a lot of speed, ideally. We'll see. Let's test it out and see. See, now the engine's able to run just fine without us going anywhere. Steering works. We can go ahead and it'd actually help if we wire up the clutch. This is like the part that I forget on literally everything. Electricity. You need to wire things together. That's helpful when you do. We're also going to run into the next problem that we'll cover here in just 1 second. And that's going to be energy production. Because as you can see, we're passively consuming electricity. And you'll see this happen as we engage the clutch. We're passively losing energy, so we're going to have a way to regain that back. But as of right now, the vehicle works. You can see we're in this like really, really low gear. I shifted into reverse and just stalled out the engine. So we gotta start it back up. This shows the importance of like proper clutch work, if you will. Like I should have come to a stop first and then put it in reverse. Same thing would happen if you like threw your car into reverse at, you know, going full speed in real life. You're gonna break some stuff probably. We hit the brakes, throw it back in first. There we go, now we're working. Shift up again. Shift up again. Now that you can hear it, you can kind of hear it faintly. I have my audio settings kind of turned way down, but the engine's like really struggling right now to work, but we're going fairly fast. But this gives us a drivable, usable experience where we have a decent range of gears to do things. And it'll keep our engine happy. Because it's kind of like a balancing act, you know? Having a vehicle function is definitely a lot of a balancing act. You want to keep the engine happy all the time, which is why you have a lot of gears. And then you also have like clutches and stuff to ease that. You also are running like a brake system of some variety. You've got a lot of stuff going on here. So now the vehicle functions. It doesn't look all that great. So this is going to be where like prioritizing how you build the vehicle space-wise comes into play. Because like ideally what ends up happening on something like this is you're going to build upwards here. Turn on the mirroring mode. I'm going to come back here. Build something resembling a flatbed of some variety. Kind of fitting in with that truck aesthetic here. And I have a flatbed that's usable. I'm just going to put some blocks here as filler. Kind of extend that out. And then here you can relocate your driver's seat here to the side. I'm using the section tool to do this so I don't lose any of my logic nodes here. Keep and preserve those to the best of my abilities. I'm going to wipe out a couple of them here though. The throttle lever, I'm going to lose that for a minute. Kind of just condense some things here. And this isn't me being the most efficient with my blocks here. We also still need to solve the power problem here in a minute too. Also, keep in mind you want to keep all of your engine stuff fairly accessible because, as I have found through many of my playthroughs, your vehicle will become damaged at some point in time, and you will need to make repairs to it. And the easier you can get to your stuff, the better. So if these batteries and stuff are exposed here on the side, that's not an issue. You know, that's just making it easier to repair it in the future. So no shame there if your vehicle ends up, you know, being a little bit awkward shaped in that regard, especially if it's for the argument's sake of repairability. Have a repairable vehicle over a better shaped one every day of the week. At this point, I'm just kind of doing some finishing touches. Use a merge tool to merge the seat back together, or else you'll run into a whole plethora of other problems. A little bit of clipping's fine. Not ideal, but is what it is. You won't notice it because the suspension's going to be mostly extended all the time anyways, so. I've got quite a bit of dead space here in the front anyway, so you could probably turn this into like where your engine would go, ideally. Somewhere in the front here. Or you could, you know, make this be fuel tank storage in the front. You know, there's all kinds of different things you can do up here. Just kind of, you know, laying out a rough design here though. Okay, we have something resembling a truck. You know, we can put stuff on the back of this. We can put cargo rails back here or hard point connectors of some variety to carry things. Just have to fix the one last issue of power generation. I'm going to do that very simply here. I want the generator to run all the time to always be providing me energy. At least in a simple build like this. Do something like that. Link that back into the main power system here. Give me my throttle lever back here. Well, maybe not right there, I guess. Lol. Put my throttle lever there. Link that for electricity. Give me this for that, for controlling the engine. And there we have it. I think this is something resembling it. I'm going to take the space bar for my parking brake in the rear. Maybe do a little bit of drifting. Lol. Probably not, but we'll see. Alright, cool. Something resembling a truck. Right here. Now it works. You can see the throttle is a little bit more sluggish now because I've added more weight to the vehicle, so now the engine's having to work harder. So keep that in mind. The more weight you add to your vehicle, the more power you're going to need. So I just killed it right there, I think. Maybe not. Yeah, I just killed it. So you have to remember to downshift when you're driving, or else you'll stall out your engine. And what's interesting here, given how the vehicle's constructed, and how I constructed the gearbox, we actually have multiple reverse ratios too. So you can go really fast in reverse. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that kind of concludes and wraps up here, like how to build the basics of a land vehicle. You can scale this up as much as you need. So if you need something like a massive earth mover, basically, you can scale this up very quickly. I mean, my all-in-one vehicles that I like to build are the multi-vehicles. They rely on the same premise. It's like you need some sort of energy source to move your vehicle, give you rotational energy to move, and then the vehicle will do what you need it to do. That's the basics of it here. I mean, you can scale this up as much as you need. Throw down a set of basically monster truck wheels if you need to, and maybe double them up if you really need to, You need a lot of usability here out of your vehicle. And by usability, I just mean like power in a sense. But like I said, remember, larger your vehicle is, the more energy you need to move it. So for something like this, I might have to opt for either one of these aircraft medium engines or one of the large engines here. And maybe this is where we get into like, all right, modular engines make more sense. And really, honing in and configuring how your engine is placed, is going to be another key factor here too. It's like you place this in the front, you sit right up here, right behind it, so on and so forth. Kind of imagine how it comes together, and that leaves the rear end open for, maybe like cargo containers and whatnot. My hydrogen-powered 8x8 still relies on this same premise here. I'm going to grab that off the workshop just to kind of really hone in. Sorry, the 10x10. It's just using hydrogen to generate electricity here, which I have already showcased a video there, but instead of using like the gas engines, I'm using motors instead. The motors don't need a gearbox in many cases because they just provide all of their torque right at the start of their RPM range. So you can get away with using them without gearboxes. which can lead to a more drivable or more efficient experience. And that's kind of why I mentioned the hybrid setup right off the bat, because hybrids are crazy efficient, but they're expensive. They're very expensive. This whole setup here is not cheap. I guess hydrogen's kind of cheap because it doesn't cost money to spawn hydrogen or oxygen in whenever you build a vehicle. But outside of fuel costs, like those hydrogen generators are not cheap. The motors are not cheap. It's all very expensive. But for like a mid to late game vehicle, if you need to move like the semi trailers, or you need to pull like your own custom cargo container trailer, this makes a lot of sense. Or if you're doing something on like the rail system, this might be another great application for it, outside of space travel and stuff. But at this point in time, this video has become a little bit longer than I expected it to. A lot of stuff to kind of cover there in vast detail. But I think I've captured all the main ideas here, so I'm going to go and wrap this video up. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial.